Hello, and welcome to episode 54 of the West Aurora 129 podcast. I'm Dr. Michael Smith, Superintendent of West Aurora School District 129. Today's episode is a little different. I'm joined by Dr. Bob Halverson, Superintendent of East Aurora School District 131, just across the Fox River from us. What makes this conversation especially interesting is that Dr. Halverson and I share a couple similarities in our upbringing and our paths to our current positions. We both started in the classroom in Aurora, then served as assistant principals before moving into district leadership and ultimately the superintendent role. So today, we thought we'd reflect on those journeys and talk about what excites us about the future of our districts and just kind of how things are going. Dr. Halverson, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you could join us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Smith. Excited to be here with you and an opportunity to reconnect again. We've been working closely recently, and I'm just excited for this another opportunity for us to continue to collaborate and talk about our lived experiences together here in the Aurora community.
100%. Bob, something that strikes me about our paths is that neither of us came to Aurora as superintendents from somewhere else. We both grew up personally and professionally in this community. And I know that means something for me, as I'm sure it does for you as well. I mean, Aurora's been our home. For me, I started teaching at Nicholson Elementary as a fifth grade teacher, and I wasn't at that time thinking, let me step into the superintendent's role. Quite honestly, I was just trying to manage 25 students, 25 fifth graders, right? So similarly, can you just tell us a little bit about your history just to catch everyone up who doesn't know?
Yeah, definitely. Very similar to you. I got into education. Actually, my undergrad was in sports management. So I came out, thought I wanted to be a college coach, had an opportunity for a grad assistantship across the country, decided not to leave the Aurora area for many reasons, went on to Aurora University to get my master's. And when I was at Aurora University, thought I was honestly just going to be a fourth or fifth grade classroom teacher. That's what I was excited about. Mm-hmm. But because of my undergrad work, I was certified as a PE teacher. So back when you and I were getting jobs in the early 2000s, jobs were pretty tough to come by in the teaching industry. Had applied in both East and West Aurora because I knew I wanted to stay here. Was provided the opportunity to become the PE teacher at Bardwell Elementary School.
Oh, nice.
In East Aurora. So I was there for 5 years, 4 years as a PE teacher. And then the final year, I knew I wanted classroom experience.
Okay.
So I went to fourth grade, but it was just a great opportunity to be close to home. I actually did my student teaching at McCleary and then started subbing. My first job subbing actually was at Schneider, which I think you weren't the principal at the time. I think it was another administrator, but I think you may have been working there at that time. So definitely just stayed connected. And, it was awesome. Literally outside of 4 years of my career, I've been in the Aurora community the entire time, either in East or West Aurora.
100%. And quite honestly, there are leadership lessons that are learned all the way across our careers. But stepping back into the classroom, I know I learned just connecting with students, seeing them for who they are. That still is a learned skill for what I bring to my leadership role in terms of those that I serve. You want to get to know the individuals. So were there any instances or things that you picked up from your time in the classroom, whether it be PE or in the classroom, like you said, that help you or have assisted your growth as a leader?
I think that's a great question. I think similar to you, it's all about relationships for me. I know you and I have talked previously about capital deposits there. And when you make social deposits, you got to make sure you're making more deposits than withdrawals. I remember from my time working with you here that was one of your big leadership things that you shared with us. Same thing goes back to the students. If you don't show them how much you care about them as individuals, they're not going to want to work hard for you. And I've taken that lesson into my role in working with adults as well. It was a great opportunity. I always look at the opportunity to be a classroom teacher, whether it's a PE teacher with 30 kindergartners in there teaching them how to juggle scarves, catch beanbags, or a classroom position teaching there. I always look at the opportunity to coach individuals. And that's the same aspect I've taken into the leadership role as well.
That's awesome. And, you talk about those deposits and withdrawals. The reason why I used to bring that up is I was always focused on what I could do for others, how I could build them up. But at the same time, I knew there were asks that we have to make of those that we lead, those that we serve. But quite honestly, as a principal, those asks were a little bit easier because the folks, to your point, I had developed relationships with. So they knew if I was asking for something, it was coming from a place of care and support, not just for themselves, but for the larger district, right? It wasn't just something to advance or move an agenda that I had personally. It was globally. They had an understanding of where we were trying to go. So I appreciate you highlighting that. And speaking of, again, leadership lessons, I know you didn't start teaching thinking, well, next year I'm going to apply to be a superintendent. When did that leadership bug kind of grab you?
It honestly grabbed me. I honestly thought I'd be one of those guys who, taught PE, coach, because I really wanted to coach. That was part of the reason I wanted to go into education.
Sure.
So I thought I'd be one of the guys who, taught physical education, was a coach for my entire career, retire after 35 years, whatever it is. But actually, Tom Hartman was my mentor. He was my principal at Bardwell. And he actually pulled me aside after like year one and was like, Bob, you've got some great leadership qualities. You really should look at being an administrator. And one of my colleagues at the time was a fourth grade teacher, Derek Edwards. He was getting into the master's program at Aurora University. And then he started putting some pressure on me as well. So at that point in time, I said, you know what? I've got a colleague that's doing this. We can go in it together. Let me try it out and kind of see where it's at there. So it was really Tom Hartman who encouraged me to go into the leadership side of stuff when it comes to education, because he saw some leadership qualities in myself that I didn't even see at that time. So that would have been back in 2003, 2004. I think in my second year of education is when I went and actually started working on my master's for my type 75.
Sure.
But he would have been the individual who really saw those things in me and pushed me to get outside my comfort zone a little bit.
Sure. And interestingly enough, there have been a few folks that we have talked to through their podcast, and often it's about someone else who saw leadership within them that sparked their interest, whether to go into education. We've talked to some alumni, recent graduates, and they talk about the relationships they had with staff or teachers that they had who saw something in them that pointed them in the trajectory of a career path. So similarly to you, it's someone saying, you know what, there's something going on there, Bob. Yep. I think you could go beyond what even is that you're doing already in terms of your impact and influence.
When I think back, Mike, back to something that you and I have in common, we obviously went to the same high school. One of the individuals who really impacted me was our basketball coach, Don Davidson. And Don Davidson, he repeatedly said, Bob, you need to go into coaching. Like full disclosure, Mike was a much better basketball player than I could ever dream of being.
I didn't want to say anything, but now that it's out there,
I'll put it out there. Like Mike was a much better basketball player, but I had a love for the game as well. And that's kind of what got me into coaching. And Don said, Bob, you've really got some leadership qualities there. You should go into coaching. So I think it was two individuals who saw something in me, but I know Don was influential for you as well when you were running point guard for him and everything else there. So
I can only imagine how many legacies Mr. Davidson has impacted by seeing individuals, seeing what they could be. And that's what we do as educators. We see students, and quite honestly, we're investing now into the potential of what we know they're capable of. And that's the story you're telling. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, for me, I know the principal role. I really enjoyed it. I had HR in my background. I thoroughly enjoyed that opportunity. But the principalship was unique in that you got to serve and support and lead others, but you also got the chance to build the relationships with the very families of the students you were looking to serve. Can you speak to that role as a principal and how it affected your leadership or how it grew your leadership?
Yeah, definitely. My time as a principal was right here in West Aurora. It was a Goodwin Elementary School for 6 years, and very similar to you, Mike. I definitely believe in servant leadership. And when I look at serving, it's not just serving the students, but it's serving the community at large. Mm-hmm. So that was the best training ground for me. Goodwin was a great spot. We had a diverse mix of kids there. We had a lot of parental support, but then we had other students who parents maybe were working 2 jobs and couldn't support. So I had to find ways to connect with all stakeholders at that point. And it was really coming together with the community there at Goodwin, coming together with the teachers, like you talked about, building that relationship, letting them know that my role was there to serve them as well, advocating for the building. I learned that being a principal is true middle level management sometimes. So I had to balance that aspect of not necessarily understanding the 30,000 foot viewpoint, but being able to advocate for my building and serve all of them as well. So I think being a principal, while I enjoyed my time in central office prior to being a superintendent, being a principal was definitely the best training ground for being a superintendent. I see many parallels there too, as far as when I came into Goodwin, some of the stuff we wanted to work on as far as our culture and climate improving is some of the stuff I've been working on as a superintendent as well.
Sure. And as a principal, or assistant principal, you have to be a jack of all trades. You do the teaching and learning, the curricular side, but you have to make sure the lights turn on.
Yes.
If there's a leak or something that happens overnight, you're the one that gets the call. Similar to our roles now, although we have great teams that we work with, that principalship, it was a good training ground and opportunity to see on a smaller scale kind of what we process day to day. Is that fair to say?
100%. Yeah. And it just gives you an opportunity. I think when I was at Goodwin, we had a staff of about 50 there because we had some self-contained programming. So we had a lot of teachers, paraprofessionals. But to your point, building those individualized relationships and then coming together with grade level teams and really hearing what they needed for support is the exact same training you're doing as a superintendent, just on a larger scale.
Now, I want to go backwards a little bit. We jumped right into the principalship. We talked about that because I didn't want to miss that pivotal role in our lives, but we both started as teachers. Can you talk about, or do you remember the difference of your perspective as a teacher versus when you were an administrator?
I think that's an interesting question. I think there is definitely a different perspective there. I think Obviously, the opportunity to be connected with kids each and every day is why we got into education and making a difference. So I think it's a lot easier just to stay grounded in your role when you're at the teaching level there. It's a lot easier to see the fruits of your labor each and every day and how you're growing students. So I think sometimes when you get to the principal seat or the central office seat, it's great for me to go back and read in a classroom. I had an opportunity during our Black History Month celebrations to go read at Allen Elementary School with a bunch of kindergartners. Number one, the kindergarten teacher couldn't believe I was a kindergarten teacher at one point in time because when I was outside of where I had done that, but it just gave me an awesome opportunity to connect back with kids. And that's why I've been very active so far at making sure we get to academic opportunities, athletic events, and artistic opportunities when it comes to our bands, et cetera, because it's just awesome to see the hard work of the kids. So I think that's the biggest difference, is not having that direct connection with kids all the time. So I always try and find ways to connect with them as well.
100%. If I was to answer my own question, I think I would echo your frontline connection with the students that you were seeing every day. You just can't replace that when you step into administration. But quite honestly, the reason why I wanted to bring that point up specifically is that is what grounds you. You know,
100%.
If you remember the focus and intent that you had as a classroom teacher on the students that were in front of you and what you were trying to do to meet their needs day to day, just magnify that. Yes, on a larger scale, but that's the purity of what we're doing in education. We're trying to meet every student where they are and then chart a course or a pathway for them to be successful. And as leaders, our goal is to get rid of all the mess that gets in the way of that, right? And there's plenty of it. But I wanted to dip our toes in to that memory lane of what it was like as we were teachers.
Well, Mike, I think to your point there too, we've talked about in the state of Illinois, there's roughly 800 superintendents, and you've been a great resource for me so far as I've sat in the role for the first year on how it can be a lonely seat. Like you're the only superintendent in a district. So that opportunity to go back and ground yourself and be around kids and really remember, like, this is why I got into it has been important to me. And it's important to make time for that, because otherwise, you know how it is. Our days can get away from us. We can have the best laid plans to get out in a building. And next thing you know, you got 2 or 3 other things you got to attend to. So
100%.
Making those opportunities, it does take you back truly to being in the classroom. One of my blessings right now is my central office is literally right across the street from Bardwell. Not even a street. It's right across the little corridor. So I can look out my window and I can see the very PE office that I started my career in. So I'm having some of those tough days. I can look across and be like, hey, remember, this is why you got into
100%.
it. So great point by you there, Mike, for sure.
So in terms of transition, we jumped into the principalship. We shared that we were superintendents. We went back to the classroom. Those were 3 phases of our careers that we're walking through here. Was there one transition that was particularly harder than the other from your perspective?
I think honestly, for me, it was going from the classroom to an assistant principal for the first time. And a lot of it's, you had to learn how to lead a little bit in a different perspective. You know how it is in superintendent, principal type training classes. You can talk theory all day, but nothing can prepare you for the job. And for me in particular, I actually left East Aurora to go out to Valley View at that point in time because the East Aurora administration was kind of landlocked up at that point.
Oh, okay.
And I actually interviewed for an assistant principal 18 times before I got my first assistant principalship. So it was something where I had to make sure that I was, quite honestly, I had to learn the skill of interviewing. You know, at this point, I can sit and talk with whoever, but back then I used to get really nervous about it. And I wasn't presenting myself in a way that was a true representation of my passion. So I think that transition from a classroom position into a leadership role, along with the journey it took me to get there and the diligence and to continue to apply, was probably my toughest transition. Because there were times, quite honestly, that I was like, you know what, maybe I'm just not meant to be an administrator at that point in time. So what about you, Mike? For you, what was the toughest one?
You know, I would say my transition to central office. I will say specifically, the reason why I'm calling that out is I worked on Dr. Angie Smith's team because she was over operations and I was stepping into HR. And to her credit, she was very upfront with me and saying, you know, Mike, this is different. You are very engaged and hands-on principal in this role. You're not going to get that kid fix. So are you ready for that? And everything worked, but she was right. There are those days where you just miss that energy. And that was a bit of a transition. You know, obviously you transition and you make it through. But that was the hardest. I was excited to step into the role of principalship, as you probably can attest to from your experience as a principal in West Aurora. We had a lot of opportunities for teacher leadership.
Yes.
So in partnership with others. So the step into the principal role, I just saw as a great way to continue partnership and expanding that beyond just the team, fifth grade team I was working with. I then got to work with every grade level team.
Sure.
So that was pretty neat to me. But that step into HR, yes, I was still part of a great team, but I just missed the energy of the kids and what they brought to the table and the families as well. So that's how I would answer. And since you called me out, that's how I would answer my own question.
I think back to your personality there too, Mike, quite honestly. Like, I know you're big on servant leadership. I experienced that. We went to the same college. So I experienced your kind of servant leadership. You were my RA. You provided a lot of support.
Yeah, there's some stories there we're not going to go into. But yes, I was.
Well, and I'll touche it right back to you. I know when you had to transition into the HR role there, you had a nickname of Dr. No Fun for a little bit.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, which, you know, we had to move away from but that wasn't a representation of who you were. It was just how you cared about people so much.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, we've talked about our journeys, but we would be remiss if we did not appropriately reflect the great institutions that we have the opportunities to lead as superintendents, and that is the institutions of District 131 and District 129. They have great histories. Yes. Can you just highlight some of that history from 131 that you've come to know and be proud of as you've served in this role?
Yeah, I actually attended 131 schools. I attended Krug School through sixth grade. So I had always started off as a Tomcat and then made some changes based off of that period in time in my life. But the thing I had a chance to look back on the history. My grandparents both graduated from East High in the 50s. My mom graduated from East High in the 70s. And just some of those strong traditions that have been there forever are what I'm most proud of. I also think that it's a unique place because while the community around us has evolved, when you look at the demographic makeup, the needs of the community, the rich traditions have remained strong. It's a proud place to be. It's a gritty place to be where people aren't afraid to roll their sleeves up and work hard to meet the needs of children, to meet the needs of the community as a whole. Going back to East and West, it's the oldest football game in the state of Illinois. You know, between the two school districts, we were the first ones established in the state of Illinois. So just those rich traditions are still there. And to see similarly on the West side, how the community that we serve has evolved, but that passion for the community is still there when it comes to the academic opportunities, the athletic opportunities, and the artistic opportunities. Our bands are big passions for us. When we get together for the East-West game, it may not have gone our way recently in some of the basketball and football games, but there's such an energy in the room. And I think that's unique to our area. And I also think that they talk about Aurora being one of the smallest big cities there are. And a lot of those connections for people that have been here for years and generational institutional knowledge are what makes both of our locations very special to me.
100%. I would echo that. The biggest thing you hear walking through the hallways, and if you're at an alumni event, is the tradition. And what I love about District 129 is, as much as we talk about tradition, the tradition is the tradition of excellence, right? We want to see the best for our students. We don't say tradition as in the sense of we're keeping things the exact same as they were. Because something that's awesome about what I've seen within both districts is we're looking to be innovative. Just talking about the expansion of our CTE program, the trades, nursing, there are opportunities for our students that go far and beyond what alumni come back and say, wow, I would have loved if this was here now. But they're excited for what the students are able to do that even they didn't, because they know that's what the future holds, right? That is what I've come to be proud of the most, that we have an opportunity to be a part of something that people hold on to. I wear my vest. It has our district logo on it. And I routinely am outside of West Aurora, and people see that logo and they say, my uncle works for West Aurora, or my dad went to West Aurora, or I graduated from West Aurora. It's not something that they're frowning upon. Yeah. It's a source of pride.
Yep.
And that is the biggest thing it's a reminder of why it is we do what we do, because the investment we're making is paying off in terms of people's lived experience and what's anchoring their foundation for the future.
Some great points you brought up there, Mike. The one thing I'm jealous of a little bit is when we drive around Aurora right now, there's a lot of magnets with the West Aurora magnets. So that's something we're going to grab onto in East Aurora, because I want people driving around doing the same thing. And then to your point, my wife and I went out to dinner last night. And as we were sitting at dinner, I walked in and saw a guy with an EA hat on and went up and just talked to him. And, I knew him, but I didn't know a gentleman sitting next to him. And right away he chimes in. He's like, oh yeah, he graduated in 82. He ran track for East Aurora. It's just that sense of pride and connection that does not go away. And is something that I think is going to be relevant for years to come.
And we don't find that students or families talk about, I can't wait to get out. Quite honestly, families talk about, I'm going to go to college because I want to come back and be a positive influence on what Aurora overall is becoming, which is a source of pride as well.
100% agree.
Now, I talked a little bit about things that we're working on, innovations that are happening. What do you think is most exciting with education from your perspective?
You touched on this already a little bit, but I'd say very similar. The way we're diversifying opportunities for our kids. If I think back to the generation I grew up in, it was that post-baby boomer generation. It was everybody's got to go to college. And I was proud. I was the first one in my family to go to college.
Sure.
My wife was the same way. But I look at what success looks like for our kids post-secondary now and how there's so many different opportunities that can meet them right where they're at. We're in the middle right now of looking at our Career and Technical Education Center and building something very similar out to what you guys have with the Wisner Center, because we want to make sure we're meeting kids where they're at. If it's AP classes, we want to provide that. If it's dual credit, we want to provide that. If it's going into the trades, we want to make sure we provide them opportunities to get that real life experience. So I think the way we've diversified our experiences for our kids, starting all the way down to elementary school, but then working through that post-secondary range is what probably excites me the most. And then I'd say also just the youth. I think our youth have been, if you think about it, this is a first generation recently to have to go through COVID. We've had a lot of stuff going on in our area. So they've had to be very resilient. And I think some of that resiliency that's been driven into our youth is really going to help them be successful, even beyond steps that you and I have been able to take in our careers when they look at their futures.
You said something that I want to make sure people hear, because I know it's a shared experience in both school districts, and that being dual credit AP classes. Students are walking into college and university as sophomores because they've been able to amass credits through our high schools that count for college credit. And that's money right back in their pockets. That's going to accelerate their pathway forward in terms of who they want to become. And not just on the college and university pathway, but within our CTE program, students are walking out with certifications that are giving them a head start into the world of trades so that they can establish themselves and, quite honestly, lay a foundation that they truly can be proud of, versus one that, well, I just do. No, we're walking with our heads held high because of what we're able to offer, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. That's that springboard, that opportunity that we're providing to kids when they're leaving our doors is tremendous. We know that whether you're going into the trades or you're going to the university, it's very expensive these days. And to not have our kids be burdened with so much debt when they come out and have true opportunities and have that experience to maybe have a better idea where they want to head is great. I know personally myself, I think I switched majors 4 times for my undergrad. So to have kids have that opportunity and really drill down is a tremendous opportunity for them.
You know, Dr. Craig, who we both worked with, we learned a tremendous amount from, used to say something as superintendent when he talked to the board, to the community. He used to say, you know, we're preparing students for careers that don't exist yet. That's just mind-boggling in and of itself. But if I were to ask you, you know, 5 and 10 years from now, what do you think students are going to be experiencing that you're excited about?
Are you talking on the career side of it or the schooling side? Which one do you think? School side. I just think the collaborative efforts for them to be able to collaborate and work together and use all of the tools that are out there, it's such a difference than it was even 5 years ago. So when you look at AI, you know, we know that that can be a hurdle sometimes, but we also know that it can be a tremendous tool for them. My own children, I've got a 17-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 12-year-old. They are using their electronic means, their media sources in ways that I never imagined. So I just think the ability for individuals to collaborate and work together with the resources and tools that are out there can take them so much further, so much faster. The flip side of that is I worry that there's times that kids may be moving too fast. And then I worry about their social, emotional health and well-being. So I think that's that balancing act for us, is to make sure that you're going to be able to expedite things in ways you and I could never dream of. Our own kids who are ready to graduate probably can't dream of, but 5 to 10 years from now, it's going to be even faster and more robust. But that social, emotional support that's going to be needed for them and the ability to have those interpersonal skills and intrapersonal skills to connect with both self and others is going to be crucial for them.
No, and I'm glad you picked up on that in terms of what I was looking for, or what I was, at least that's what I hope for West Aurora. And I know you share the same. We can never lose the art of seeing one another. In terms of what we do as educators and how we're supporting students to not only advocate for themselves, but advocate for their classmates to their left and to their right. Regardless of what the job is that may not exist, that comes to fruition, at some point, there's still human interaction because either the product or service that you're providing is either going to benefit, and that's the hope, or you need to identify if something's hurting because you need to be able to see those that you're looking to serve. And that's what it's about, right? And
Yes.
I think you hit on that when you talked about the social emotional learning. Yep. They used to call them soft skills. They're not soft.
No, agreed.
They're not to the side. Those are key skills. And generationally, we need to make sure our students are understanding how to relate to one another, not just with technology, but how that is a tool to better those themselves and those that are in their spheres of influence. Is that fair to say?
100% fair. I think going back to you and I have heard attitude, skills, and knowledge before. Mm-hmm. And like you said, those are no longer soft skills 100%. Those have to be at the forefront of what we're doing. And I think that's a challenge for educational institutions, but it's also an exciting challenge because it's an opportunity to really get people to team up and coach them up in that aspect as well.
So our districts, there's a friendly rivalry. We're going to underscore friendly. We do sit on opposite sides of the Fox River, but we serve the same community. And there are already some great examples of our two districts working together, such as the Crosstown Band Concert, the Aurora Youth Summit. And I just learned, and I was not aware of this, that our two culinary programs are having an exchange next month. I might have to be a guest taste tester.
I will join you at one of the opposite sites for sure.
Do you see some other opportunities for partnership, or do you think it can only grow from there, you think?
Yeah, I would say definitely. I think with you and I having a background and knowing each other and trusting one another, there's a great opportunity to come along side by side. Like you said, there's a competitive rivalry there. But at the same time, I think we all want what's best for Aurora.
100%.
Some of the opportunities, you and I just recorded a video recently. We were kind of dealing with some of the student walkouts and making sure we had student voice. I thought that was a great first step, and it was received really well by my community. I know our boards have connected more recently as well, where they've had an opportunity to talk together. Some of the things I see in the future is the potential for us to continue to look at our departments and say, where are we similar? Could we have a day during the summer where we bring both school districts together when you look at our departmental leadership and, hey, let's have our finance office meet with your finance office, talk about our lived experience. Same thing with curriculum instruction, because I think there's so many areas that we're similar, and there may be areas where you're a couple steps ahead of where we're at right now, or we're a couple steps ahead of where you're at. I think one area in particular, we both just adopted the HMH curriculum for literacy at the elementary level. And I know we've been going through kind of the PD associated with it for our staff. You guys have as well. Great opportunity to bring our staffs together and just talk about that implementation, where we can grow together. I think if we come together with a growth mindset between the two districts and not a competitive mindset, because like I said, you beat me one-on-one in basketball and you guys just got us recently. But if we come together with that mentality, I think the sky's the limit for us. So that would be my next thing. But I don't want to put it out there too early because you and I haven't had a chance to talk, but it might be a great example for us to collaborate and talk together and say, okay, let's bring the two districts together and build that out a little bit.
There are so many opportunities. It just takes an openness, as you just articulated, and willingness to connect, right? It's not a competition. It's a collaboration. I think about a benefit that you and I have, zooming out even beyond our school districts to our county, and how all of the superintendents in our county come together and collaborate and share. And what are you processing? How can I help you? We've tried this. You might want to give it a shot. That's the only way we're going to get better. Why? Because it's not about us. It's about the students that we have been tasked with serving that show up on our doorstep. And if we can get out of our own way, if it's going to benefit them, right?
Definitely. And the county group, I'm glad you touched on that. That's a great shout out to that group. I know in my first year as a superintendent, you guys as a whole have been a great resource to me just to be able to bounce ideas off of, and that's truly appreciated. And the cool part about it is a lot of us that are there are newer in our superintendent careers. So it's not like we're that far off from where we're at with one another, but your experience with something that went on may have been a little bit different than mine. And it's a great sounding board. So yeah.
Sure. Well, I really appreciate it. The opportunity to kind of hang out, kind of take us back to our college days, right? Just hanging out, talking, sharing our perspectives. And again, taking the time from a busy schedule. We're blessed. We're with the opportunity to have you here to come talk to us. Our districts, again, may be on different sides of the Fox River, but we share the same goal, which is creating opportunities for every student in Aurora. Thanks again, Bob. And here's to a strong finish to the school year on both sides of town.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Dr. Smith. I really appreciate it. As always, I've enjoyed the conversation and enjoyed the collaboration between the two of us. Thank
100%.
you.
To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. And don't forget, you can follow and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.